Good, and apologies if my questions are repetitive. I was at other issues in the dawn. But opting into the pact is greatly undermines Ireland's democratic sovereignty by giving exclusive power to the EU to decide on our immigration policies. The pact includes a mandatory solidarity mechanism, forcing countries to choose between accepting migrants or paying hefty sums into common fund. And Minister, a question I want to ask at the outset is, will you publish the Attorney General's advice to you regarding to opting in or opting out here? We know the saga that went on before the referendum, and we've seen it now. According to the pact, a minimum of 30,000 asylum seekers would be distributed annually throughout the bloc. And some member states, have to pay up to 20,000 for every migrant to reject. And as I said, we see for Slovakia has calculated that, and they estimate that it would be 10 million annually. But have you done any calculations as to what the cost implication would be to our purse here by the numbers that we would refuse if we opt into this? And and that would that be an annual figure as well? And have we been unduly penalised by the fact that our inflated GDP figures are, of the multinationals at the moment? Thankfully, I suppose we're lucky, but if that changes, how are we going to pay this kind of money? And we see where the Polish Prime Minister has declared that his government would refuse to accept any relocated asylum seekers under this pact. So, in simple terms, the pact is viewed as an invitation to millions of migrants to come to Europe. And we, by opting in and by not having meaningful debate, and you've answered your last questioner, Senator Cogan, you said that you had exhaustive and extensive background work here. Why are you only allowing 3 hours debate or 3.5 hours debate here in this committee in Ireland, and obviously the debate in the Dáil, but that will be obviously restricted also. So the stark reality is that the EU migration pact, designed to streamline migration policies and addresses the challenges of asylum seekers, means that Ireland is ceding control over our borders and immigration procedures. And that's, to me, sticking out as plain as a nose in my face, that we are ceding our sovereignty. The pact represents a significant erosion of national sovereignty, centralising migration policies and imposing quotas on member states that will result in non-elected EU institutions undermining our ability to make independent decisions. And that's clearly, for me anyway, sends alarm bells. As a Democrat elected by the Irish people, I firmly believe with every fibre in my being that preserving sovereignty is paramount even in the face of shared migration challenges. And for Ireland to legally opt into the obligations contained in the regulatory framework underpinning the pact, the matter has to be subject of independent decisions by resolution separately taken by each House of the Oireachtas. We're telling us, but will we see, as I said, to go back to the Attorney General's advice, and why the indecent haste? If it's so many years in gestation and so much exhaustive work, how come we're rushing to have it, come into the Dáil last week without debate on the committee? We're in committee, 3.5 hours at most. I would have thought something like this would deserve much more extensive assessment and evaluation and question and answer. So maybe you could answer those questions for me, please.
Deputy, to your last question, when this was the first iteration was presented in 2016. There is and has been an option for any member of this committee or any member of the House to raise any of the issues that would have been presented in 2016, the second iteration in 2020. There was nothing to stop deputies or senators from putting down questions, debates, private members, topicals, commencement matters, all of which I endeavour to respond to always. So for the last 8 years, it has been open to members to put down questions or to seek to engage on this. We have had recent debates on immigration, 2 significant debates in the Houses where I've outlined this, and obviously it was open for deputies to raise concerns there as well. In terms of whether this takes away our sovereignty in the same way that the Irish people voted to elect you, Deputy, they also voted to sign up to the Lisbon Treaty, and it was made very clear in the Lisbon Treaty that we would have an option to opt into these type of measures when it comes to migration and security, so there's nothing that's forced upon us. We have opted into a significant number to date. My preference is that we opt in at the earlier stages, because if we opt in now, then we have an opportunity to work through the detail and to be part of those discussions. If you opt in at a later stage, you don't have those options. So that's why we have the time frame now. But this has been open to anybody to raise any matter that has been very public for the last 8 years. And obviously that hasn't happened for whatever reason. In terms of the funding, the figure is 12,960,000 that would be sought from us instead of taking 648 people, if that's what we chose. That's actually a lower figure than what it currently costs us to house and to accommodate and to process somebody at the moment. It's on average about 25,500 maybe for 1 year. People might stay shorter or longer. That figure would equate to about 20,000. If we don't have and don't sign up to the various different measures, if we don't have a greater way to return people, if we don't have faster processing so people spend longer here, that figure will obviously be much more. So the more efficient process we have, the quicker we can turn people around, the better process we have for returning people. It is actually more cost effective than what we are paying now, where people are longer in accommodation, it takes longer to process them, we don't have an efficient way of returning them. So overall we would estimate that the cost will be less, even potentially with increased migration globally. The figure of 30,000 is the minimum figure, yes, but our percentage is quite minimal when you look at it. It's 2.16%, and there will be nothing forced upon us. We can choose to take people, or we can choose to pay the figure instead. And as I said, the figure is actually less than what it costs us to house and to process people here at the moment.
Thank you, Minister. Just let's have a brief supplemental, Deputy. But before you do that, just on point of information, because you raised the matter of this committee and how much time we had to debate. We are we have a deadline of the 3rd of May. The motion that referred the matter to us contained that within it. That's outside of our control. However, within the time that we have to respond to it, we scheduled an additional hearing next week. So we will have 2 3-hour sessions. We'll have today, and we have a second session next week now, organised or being organised, where we'll hear from expert witnesses. So just for everybody's information, that is the plan. That's the time. I suppose we have 2 weeks. We're making the most of the 2 weeks. So just so you're aware of that.
Could I just add as well? Sorry,
Yeah,
there's obviously been measures that we have opted into prior to now, and they have been debated in this committee. So recently, last year, we opted into the new agency. This was debated. We've opted into recent measures around human trafficking. This was debated here. So it's not to suggest there hasn't been debates in this House, but at any stage, yourself as a deputy could have raised a topical issue on any of these matters, and nobody is precluded from doing that.
We do raise topical issues all the time, but most times we're looking to get a line minister or else some other minister of state. But on the 2 points I asked you, one is, will you and your government publish the Attorney General's advice in relation to not holding a referendum on this and other aspects of it? And as I said, you nearly think that we would have thought that this been rushed, that we had 8 years to raise this. The way you're talking, that it's our fault that it's there since 2016, we didn't ask questions. So, I mean, that's not true, because, there's limited aspects of raising it in Promise Ledge or the business, or indeed commencement in the channel or topics, as I said, and you don't even get a minister to answer. And like what you said, I seldom get a minister to answer questions. It's a minister of state or somebody else. So will you publish the AG's advice?
The Attorney General's advice is never published, but what I will say, we have a constitutional requirement that any measure we opt into would be approved by both houses. And that's obviously what we're doing here. We're having this debate now, and then the option is to opt in both houses. That is the constitutional requirement, and we're absolutely adhering to that.
Okay, thank you, Minister.